Okay, so again, so this is a volume of a solid of revolution. So using the disk and the ring method. We are done with plane areas. So both for rectangular coordinates and polar coordinates. So from there, so we are given a two-dimensional figure, and then we find the enclosed area. So in volume of a solid of revolution, so since this is a solid, so it's a three-dimensional figure. So aside from the area, so there is a depth that is involved. So we're still going to use the principle that we had. So for area, say the figures that we will be forming, the cross-sectional part of the solid, we still need to get the area. And then afterwards, so we're just going to identify the depth or the height of the figure so as to find the volume. Okay, and as I mentioned, so there are three methods that we will be using. So the disk method, the ring method, and the cylindrical shell. So for today, so we will be focusing on disk and ring method. So okay, given that we have this, we have a function r, okay, so whose graph is shown on the presentation. So that function is equals to f of x. And then, so there's an area that is involved, so which is bounded by the function f of x. Okay, so the function f of x, so this line, and then including the x-axis, or that is y is equals to 0. And then, of course, our limit of integration, that is from 0 to b. So that is the bounded area. So considering that area, so we can compute, okay, so using the formula that we had, so for plane areas in rectangular coordinates. So meaning, if I'm going to represent using a vertical strip, okay, so I'll be able to get the area, okay, so get that area. But then, so in solid figures, so we can revolve, okay, so we can revolve that area so with respect to a certain axis. Okay, so it could either be the x-axis, the y-axis, or any line that we want. Okay, so to revolve that given area. So for example, in this case, I'm going to revolve this r, okay, or this area along the x-axis. So nung ni-revolve ko siya along the x-axis, what I've done is so there is just a symmetry. Okay, so there is a symmetry. So on the first quadrant to that of the fourth quadrant. So because our axis of rotation would be the x-axis, and as you can see here, so try to figure it out. So pag inikot mo siya, okay? So pag inikot mo yung plane area, so pag inikot mo siya, ang magpo-form sa kanya would be a three-dimensional figure. So that three-dimensional figure, just like this one, parang it forms a certain, parang ano, diba? It's a vase. But then if I'm going to cut it, pag cut mo yan, kahit saan mo siya i-cut, so there will be circles, okay? Or actually, there will be discs that will be formed. So kahit saan mo i-cut yan ng manipis, so you will see a disc. So probably iba-iba man yung radius niya, but then the cross-section would still be a disc. Okay? So the disc is formed. Okay? So whenever the area, okay? So yung entire area nakadikit doon sa axis of rotation. Pero if there is a vacancy, okay? So may mga dito open space. So in between the axis of rotation, so pwedeng ang mag-form would be a ring. Okay, so instead of a disc. So this is how we differentiate it. Okay, so from our topics in area to that of the volume. So remember that in area, so to find the area enclosed, so we usually represent either a vertical strip or a horizontal strip. Okay, and then we'll be able to get the area. Okay, so from the lower limit to the upper limit. So our representation for area would be a vertical strip or a horizontal strip. So in volume, so our representation for a volume instead of a strip, although it will still come from a strip, but then the 3D figure, the 3D representation could either be a disc, it could either be a ring, or it could be a cylindrical shell. Okay? So ngayon, so how do we measure or how do we compute for the volume? So if it is a disc, so this is a disc. So ang disc is ang cross-section niya, the figure is a circle, and then it just so happens that it has a thickness. Okay? So it just has a thickness. So and how do we measure the volume of this one? So of course, we need to find what would be the volume of the base or the area of the base. So the area of the base, since this is a circle, that is pi r squared. Right? Then if we want to get the volume, so we just simply add the depth. So pwede siyang in terms of thickness or pwede siyang in terms of height. Okay? So kaya kung kukunin natin yung volume, ang formula natin would be pi r squared times height. So that is for the disk. Okay? So kapag ang na-form mo is a disk. So kaya, this is the formula that you need to remember. So that is the pi r squared. Okay, so pi r squared height. But then how do we use this formula? So take note. Okay, so take note that the r there, so it's actually the strip that you use. So for example, in this case, so this is a vertical strip. So this would represent as the r. So that's the radius. Diba? So that is the radius. So how do we get the radius? Okay, so the radius is, so again, kamukha nun dati, so the one tip would be the upper, okay, y upper, and then the lower tip, so would be the y lower. So therefore, to get the radius, so that is pi is constant, so our radius will be y upper minus y lower squared. And then what will be our height? So since this is a strip, yeah, so ang radius niya is r, ang thickness niya is yung differential. So ang pinaka-height niya is actually is the dx. And then, so saan ba natin siya evaluate? So gaano kalaki? So that is from A to B. So that is how we get the volume. So pi, it's still pi. So the y upper minus lower, that will be our radius square. And then dx would represent as the height. So therefore, the volume is pi r squared times the height. Okay, so you have to understand so how to use the formula. Okay? Do not mechanically memorize the formula. Understand what each parameter represents. And then by you have to take a look at the graph. Okay, so looking at the graph, you'll be able to supply all the necessary information for you to use that formula. So by just simply memorizing the formula, it won't do anything to you. Okay, so it will be difficult. So you have to understand how each formula are used. So remember the formula, y upper minus y lower. So if it is a vertical strip, if it is a horizontal strip, it's x to the right minus x to the left. So that's how we get the radius. But then if it is a ring, sir, when do we get a ring? So for example, I have this one. So we have a line. Okay, so we have a line and then we have a parabola. So let's say we have a line and we have a parabola. And then I'm going to revolve this one around the x-axis, so similar to the given figure. So what's the difference? So the difference here is, if I'm going to draw a symmetrical figure here, so this is how it looks like. So ito yung mirror niya, no? So at the fourth quadrant. So ngayon, so kamukha nung dati, I'm going to use a strip. Okay, so to represent that enclosed area. And then, what happens? So this strip, hindi naman siya nagtatouch doon sa ano. Diba? Hindi ka mukha dito, Kahit saan mo lagay yung strip dito, okay? So it always touches the x-axis. And like with this given figure, probably dito it touches. Pero pagdating niya dito, if I'm going to move the strip, so hindi niya tinatouch yung x-axis natin. Okay? So ibig sabihin, there are empty spaces. Okay? There are empty spaces, so that would represent the hole. Okay, so that would represent the ring or the washer. So once kung ito-draw natin yung figure dyan, so ito yung ano, diba? Mirror ng strip. So tapos this would be the hole. Forming the donut. So kaya meron tayong ring. Okay? So do you get it? So how we are forming the disc and how are we forming the ring? Kasi the strip that we use, so once we move it at different places, it always touches the axis of rotation. So then that will be a disc. But if I'm going to move, okay, if I'm going to move the strip, and then there are cases, so similar to this, na hindi niya tinatouch yung axis of rotation, then that makes it a ring. Okay, so that makes it as a ring. So and how do we use the formula here? So again, so for the formula for the disc or for the ring will then be, so volume would be pi. Instead of R only, so we have two radius. Okay, so we have two radii, so the outer radius and the inner radius. So I'll just have capital as the outer, R squared, so minus the inner, and then multiply it with the height. And that is our general form. The difference is just there, yung sa radius. So pag this, it's just a plain single R. But then if it is a ring, so there are two radii. Okay, so we have the outer radius and the inner radius. Okay, so this will be the disc. This would be the ring. So let's have our first example. So for our first example, so we consider the region bounded by the graphs of y is equals to x cubed, y is equals to 0, and x is equals to 2. So use the disk method to find the volume of the solid form by revolving this region about the x-axis and y-axis. So let's graph it first. Manage. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. So 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. So we're going to graph. So I'll start with y is equals to 0. So y is equals to 0 is the same as the x-axis. Ibig sabihin, yung y mo pare-parehas, 0. Whatever is the value of x, y is always 0. So y is always 0 is the x-axis. So ito siya. So that is y is equals to 0. The next one is x equals to 2. So for whatever value of y, x is always 2. X is always 2. Ito yun. So x is always 2. And lastly, I'll just be doing the y is equals to x cubed. So I could just substitute x and then y. So when x is 0, so 0 cubed, that is 0. Then when x is 1, 1 cubed is 1. When x is 2, 2 raised to 3 is 8. So graph ko na lang. So 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8. So therefore, it looks like this. Okay, so that is the enclosed area. So this one is the y is equals to x cubed. And now, so to form the 3D figure, so it says that our first axis of rotation is the x-axis. So x-axis, so dito siya i-revolve. So x-axis. So ang re-revolve siya sa x-axis, I'm going to form a disc. So I'll be using a vertical strip. Okay. So vertical strip ang gagamitin natin. So let's say it's here. So therefore, this would be the x. So since vertical strip yan, tapos paikot natin sa x-axis, so ang point of symmetry or ang line of symmetry natin is the x-axis. So I'm going to form yung symmetrical figure. So this is how it will be. Okay, so this is how it will look like. And then, ang 3D figure natin yan, so will be this one. So as you can see here, so kahit saan mo i-move yung vertical strip, so the lower portion always touches the axis of rotation. So hindi siya nawawala sa axis of rotation kahit saan mo siya i-move. Okay, so kahit saan mo i-move ito, so it will always be within the axis of rotation. So that makes it a disk. Okay? So kaya pag nag-form yan, natin mirror na strip. So this is how it will look like then. So tapos, I'll have the radius. So the radius, of course, that would represent the strip. So remember, ano natin yan, that would be y upper minus y lower. So ito yung y upper natin, and this one will serve as our y lower. So ang y upper natin, so the upper portion of the strip touches y is equals to x cubed. So y upper is x cubed. Y lower touches the x-axis, so which is y is equals to 0. So y lower is equals to 0. So we use our formula. So the volume is from A to B and pi r squared times height. So kamukha nung kanina, so pi, ang r natin is y upper minus y lower squared. And then ang height natin, that would be the x. So from ang a natin, so since dx yan, so ito yung limit niya. That is from 0 to 2. So substitute lang natin yung y upper, which is x cubed minus 0 squared dx. So x cubed raised to 2, that would be x raised to 6 dx. And then the volume will be, so pi x to the 6 will be x to the 7 or x to the 7 over 7. And then we are going to evaluate it from 0 to 2. So volume then would be pi, multiply it with So 2 square or 2 raised to 7 over 7, then minus 0 raised to 7 over 7. So that make it this one 0. So 2 raised to 7 is 128 pi all over 7 cubic units. So that's how we get the volume. Okay, so using a disk. Question. So we understand it. If we understand it, the better. Okay, so that's the first question. The second question is, how about if we're going to revolve it around y-axis? So y-axis natin siya paikot. I have the x and the y. So we graph the same thing. So the graph would still be the same. So we have y is equals to 0. And then we have x equals to 2. And lastly, this is y is equals to x cubed. But then our axis of rotation this time, it's along the y-axis. So along the y-axis. So if x-axis is y is equals to 0, ang y-axis natin, that is x is equals to 0 naman. So ngayon, magpo-point of symmetry tayo or line of symmetry dito, no? So this is how will it look like. Okay, so kung iikot natin siya sa y-axis. So ngayon, kung nagamit ako ng strip, so ang gagamitin ko would be the horizontal strip. So this one will become dy. And then, so forming, so kung meron tayong replica ng strip, so ang ma-form dito would be, so this is for the inner ring, and the other one would represent the outer ring. And this would be the height. The height is actually the dy. And that's, so we have the ring. So ngayon, we just need to label. So yung sa label natin, so this will represent our outer ring. Tapos ito naman yung magre-represent ng inner ring natin. So ang tanong, ano yung mga yan? So outer ring, so yung big R. So this would be XR, then XL. X to the right, X to the left. So ganun din dito, XR, XL. So ang XL, so saan ba nagtatouch? Doon sa y-axis. Diba? So we're in, that is 0. X is equals to 0. In short, XL is equals to 0. XL is equals to 0. And then yung sa outer ring naman, so yung sa outer ring, nagtatouch siya dito sa ito. So which is yung x is equals to 2. So xr is equals to 2. And then yung inner ring naman natin, so saan siya nagtatouch? Dito sa ito. Y is equals to x cubed. So the problem here is that is y. Ang kailangan ko is xr. Gagawin natin, that is y raised to 1/3 is equals to x. So take the cube root of x, both sides. So making xr to be y raised to 1/3. So xr is y raised to 1/3. So now that we have everything, so we can now compute for the volume. So volume will be from A to B. So pi r squared minus r squared times the height. Okay. So pi, ang capital R natin, that is XR minus XL. So ang XR natin, that is 2 minus 0. So 2 minus 0 square. And minus ang smaller r natin, y raised to 1/3 minus 0 square. And ang height natin, so yung dy. So since dy yan, so hanggang saan ba pwedeng mag-move itong ring na to? Kasi movable din itong ring na to eh. So mag-i-start siya sa 0 hanggang doon sa pinakataas. So which is 8. So 0 to 8 siya na. So 0 to 8. So it moves. Okay? So from 0 until y is equals to 8. So we just simplify this one. So pi. So 2 square will be 4 minus y raised to 1/3 raised to 2. That is y raised to 2/3 dy. So we integrate. So 4 with respect to y. So 4y minus y. So power rule, 2/3 plus 1, 5/3. Divided with 5/3, that makes it, multiplied it with 3/5. And then evaluated from 0 to 8. So pi then, so for the upper limit, so 4 times 8 minus 3/5 times 8 raised to 5/3. And minus the lower limit, so 4 times 0, that is 0. And then 0 raised to 5/3 times 3 raised to 5, that's still 0. So this one is 0. And pi, so 4 times 8, that is 32, minus 8 raised to 5/3. So cube root ng 8 is 2. 2 raised to 5, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Times 3, 96/5. So we take the LCD, which is 5. So 5 times 32, 160 minus 96. So 160 minus 96 is 64. 64 pi all over 5. Then the unit would be cubic units. And that would be the volume if it is revolved along the x-axis or y-axis. Okay? Are we still good? So again, of course, if this, I don't know if you were able to cover this one so during your senior high, or if you can even still recall them. But definitely, so this topic, you really need to practice. Okay? So at first, you won't understand it probably. Okay, but then since this is a recording, so you can see the video again, and then once you are already familiar with the method, so there are available examples on our module, so which you can try on. So you can really grasp the process, okay, so on how to do this. So do not mechanically memorize the formula, then just try to apply it wherever you want it, but you really need to understand how the figures are formed and how the formula works. So from there, you're going to derive your own. So let's have our last example. So we have to determine the volume of the solid obtained by rotating the region bounded by a parabola, so which is y is equals to x squared minus 2x. And then we have a line which is y is equals to x. So about the line y is equals to 4. So ang difference nito, ang axis of rotation is not x-axis nor y-axis. It's another line. So how do we compensate for that? So we need to graph it first. So we have the x-axis and the y-axis. So the easiest to graph here is y is equals to x. Okay, so that's a line. So for every values of x, that's the same value for y. So that's 0 yan, 0. 1, 1. Kung 2, 2. So therefore, so this is how it looks like. That is y is equals to x. And then the other one, so we have the parabola. So for the parabola, so I need to find the vertex first. So y is equals to x squared minus 2x. So to find the vertex, so we use completing the square. So we take half of the middle term, so which is negative 2, then square it. So 1/2 of negative 2 is negative 1. Square it. That will be positive 1. So that is what we will be adding here. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 1. So plus 1 minus 1. So y then will be, so x minus 1 squared minus 1. Right? So we factor this out. So this is x minus 1 squared and then minus 1. So we can now draw our vertex. So the vertex is positive 1. So kasi x minus 1 is equals to 0. That makes it x to be equal to 1. And then ito, diretso na siya. Y is equals to negative 1. Ito naman yung sa y. So negative 1. Our vertex then will be here. So by the way, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So ito siya, 1 and negative 1. So this is the vertex of the parabola. So since this is a line, so I can get the point of intersection. So para mag-graph natin siya. So the point of intersection of y is equals to x squared minus 2x and y is equals to x. So what's the point of intersection between the line and the parabola? So we just equate. So y is equals to x, so therefore this is x is equals to x squared minus 2x. So I transpose x, so x squared minus 2x. So from positive x, it will become negative x. So 0 then is x squared. Negative 2x minus x is negative 3x. So we factor out x. So matira would be x minus 3. I'll now get that x sub 1 will be 0, then x sub 2 will be positive 3. So since this is a point of intersection, so we need to find the value of y sub 1 and y sub 2. But then we are given that y is equals to x. And sabihin, for whatever is the value of x, that would be the value of y. So when x is 0, so y will be 0. When x is 3, y will be 3. So our point of intersection for the first one is 0, 0. The second intersection would be 3 and 3. So this is 0, 0. Then this is 3 and 3. So therefore, this is how the parabola will look like. And this one is y is equals to x squared minus 2x. Yan lang, ang binigay niya will be ang axis of rotation natin is x is equals to, or y is equals to 4. This one. So dito siya iikot. Y is equals to 4. So kung diyan siya iikot, so tingnan natin yung, draw natin yung symmetrical figure. So kung below to ng 1 point, so dito yung kapartner niya. Tapos 3, 1, 2, 3. So ito. So ito yung magiging line natin. So, tapos dito yung pinaka-vertex. Ito yung pinaka-parabola naman natin. So, kung kukuhanin natin ito as our strip. Okay? So therefore, that will be in terms of the x, vertical strip. So, ang counterpart niya is here. So, ito yung ano yan. This would be the whole. Okay? Tapos, so forming a ring. Okay, so a ring again. But how do we find the formula? Okay, so saan ba siya umikot? So umikot siya doon sa y is equals to 4. So therefore, this one so will serve as our outer radius. So saan yung maliit? Ito naman yung pinaka inner radius natin. So outer radius and the inner radius. So for the outer radius, so magkakaroon tayo ng y upper at saka y lower. So we have ganun din dito, y upper, y lower. So look at the y upper. So saan tumatama? Dito sa y is equals to 4. Okay, so ito yun, y is equals to 4. So y upper is equals to 4. Ang y lower natin is so lower is yung lower portion ng strip natin. So which is nakatama siya doon sa parabola. So therefore our y lower is x squared minus 2x. And then for the inner radius naman, so yung y upper niya will be the same axis which is 4. Ang y lower naman, so saan ba? Ito yun. So yung sa taas ng strip. So yung sa taas ng strip, that is y is equals to x. So therefore, y lower is equals to x. And that is how we proceed. So volume would be from A to B. So pi r squared minus r squared. And then times height. So pi. Ito. Y upper minus y lower. Our y upper is 4. Y lower, so minus y lower, it is x squared minus 2x. And then, yung sagot dito, square natin. So, ganun yun, no? So, or sorry, y upper minus y lower. Then square it, of course. And then minus, so y upper, so for the inner radius, so which is 4, and y lower, which is x, then raised to 2. So our height is dx. So therefore, our concern there would be the boundary or the point of intersection for the x values. So that is from 0 to 3. So we simplify it now. So v then will be from 0 to 3. So pi. So I need to distribute the negative first. So 4 minus x squared, then plus 2x. 4 minus x squared plus 2x. And then raise it to 2. Then minus 4 minus x squared dx. So I need to expand this. So yung 4 minus x squared plus 2x, I need to multiply it to itself. So separate ko yung computation niya. So first term, 4 times 4, 16. And then 4 times negative x squared, so negative 4x squared. So 4 times 2x, so plus 8x. Middle term, negative x squared times 4, negative 4x squared. Negative x squared and negative x squared, positive x to the 4th. So negative x squared, positive 2x, it's negative 2x cubed. So ina-align ko yung similar terms. And then 2x times 4, so that would be 8x, so plus 8x. And then 2x times negative x squared, so negative 2x cubed. And lastly, 2x times 2x, that would be positive 4x squared. So we take the algebraic sum, so 16, negative 4x squared, so plus 16x plus x to the 4th minus 4x cubed. So we substitute that here. So v would be from 0 to 3 pi, and then I'll have 16, or I'll start with I'll arrange it. I'll start with x to the 4th, and then minus 4x cubed, and then minus 4x squared plus 16x minus 16. And minus, so expand 4 minus x raised to 2. So that is 16 minus 8x. And then plus x squared. So combining similar terms. So x to the 4th minus 4x cubed. So I'll have negative x squared and minus x squared. So negative 5x squared. And then 16x plus 8x. So itong negative, distribute pa natin. So 16, negative, negative, so positive 8. So 16, that would be plus 24x. Then 16 minus this should be positive 16. Yeah, so it should be positive 16. So 16 minus 16, it will become 0. Okay? And dx. So we integrate this time. So pi integral of x to the 4th, x to the 5th over 5 minus 4x cubed. So x to the 4th over 4. So cancel yung 4. So x to the 4th na lang yan. Minus 5 over 3x cubed. Then plus 12x squared. Tama? So x to the 4th, 4x cubed, 5x squared, 24x. And then we substitute 0 to 3. And then we'll have pi. So substitute the upper limit. So 3 raised to 5 over 5 minus 3 raised to 4 over, 3 raised to 4 minus 5 over 3 raised to 3 cubed plus 12 3 square. Minus, not going to substitute 0. So 0 naman yung sa lower limit lahat. So V then would be pi. So 3 raised to 5. So 3, 9, 27, 81 times 3 to 43 over 5 minus 3 raised to 4, 9 times 9, 81. Then minus 3 cube over 3, that is 3 squared, 9. 9 times 5, 45. And then plus 12 times 9, 9, 18, 108. Diba? 18, 108. So finally, so do the calculator. Using your calculator. So what should be the answer? So the answer should be 153 over 5 pi cubic units. And we're done. Unless you have some question. Questions or some clarifications. I'll stop the recording.